Hello, my name is Joshua May, and this is my Week 4 podcast. The topic we will be discussing today is Columbia Records and their impact on the music industry in general. Columbia Records is a Sony-owned record label that was originally founded in 1888. They started out with ties to Thomas Edison, being founded originally as the Columbia Phonograph Company. Edison and Columbia's relationship dissolved in 1894, and Columbia began molding their own records in 1902. They have had an immense impact on which artists we have or haven't heard as consumers over the last 100 years. I grew up on some of the classic rock and jazz albums, so to me, one of the big influences we will be discussing today is that of Columbia Records and some of their huge classic rock and jazz artists they signed and developed. They were responsible for signing artists such as AC/DC, Blue Oyster Cult, The Byrds, Louis Armstrong, Ray Charles, Chick Corea, Depeche Mode, Aretha Franklin, Iron Maiden, ZZ Top, Billy Joel, Paul McCartney, Thelonious Monk, Bruce Springsteen, and Van Halen, among others. They had a very successful business model and strategically sought after, found, signed, and developed some of the biggest acts in all of jazz and rock history. The sheer number of classic artists they became responsible for helped Columbia Records secure an undeniable foothold in the top ranks of the music industry in general. An interesting thing about Columbia Records and its rise of success with the LP record came from its president at the time, who was Edward Wallerstein. Edward was determined that he wanted to figure out a way to develop a record so that he could hear an entire movement of a symphony on one side of the record without having to turn it over in the middle of the performance. The LP took off well in 1948, with one of the biggest successes being when they released a reissue of The Voice of Frank Sinatra, a record that had been previously released in 1946 as an album of 478 RPM records. The first LP on record with Columbia was actually the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto in E minor, played by Nathan Milstein, with Bruno Walter conducting the Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra of New York. Columbia Records have had a huge influence on me ever since I was a child. They developed and released iconic albums that would go on to shape the face of the industry and entertain millions of fans for years to come. It is amazing to see how resilient they were and always held a place in the scene by being constant innovators, creators, and discoverers of anything related to great music or great music inventions. I have been interested in Columbia Records for a long time because I hope to work there one day in the future as an audio engineer, assisting on the creation of other people's music, as well as being able to develop my own creations. I have researched them extensively and have known about their impact for some time. It definitely helps you realize the standards you are up against and what you still have to figure out when you begin to research who has worked at this iconic label and all the amazing talent that was in their studios. Columbia Records will always be a label with controlling force in the music industry, what choices we have as consumers, and controlling what artists make or break it.